Once there was a buzzard and a hawk sitting up in a tree. The hawk looked down in the fence and seen a rabbit. He say, "Brother Buzzard, yonder go a rabbit. How we gonna get him?" The buzzard looked round at the hawk and say, "Why, we just wait on the salvation of the Lord." Hawk say, "Yeah, well, that salvation liable to be too long about coming." And he took him a dive after the rabbit and broke his own neck in the crack of the fence. Buzzard say, "I told you to wait on the salvation of the Lord. Now I got you to eat. It will pay you greatly to have some patience."
You know, I think that the first thing I can remember was Mother Walker singing the blues as she would sit alone in the evenings. I used to listen to her singing there at night, and I knew then that the blues was in me too. I wouldn't be patient in waiting to sing and play them blues. Just as soon as I could, I would be giving back to the Lord what He gave me. I would give Him my blues experience, be it bad or good. Sometimes I wouldn't think at all about my life, just going and singing and drinking and sinning. My neck could get broke, but them blues was the salvation, and Lord gave me my blues.
Road to nowhere. Dehydrated, my head pounding from the weekend's binge, I had a hard time thinking about getting behind a wheel and actually driving. There was no way I would give up the wheel. If I did, the group might figure out that I had a drinking problem and convince me to stop. Everyone was moving slow. We were only 3 days into it, and already we secretly knew we were going to have to pace ourselves just a little better. Most in the group would adhere to the new road rule they were making for themselves, the pace yourself slower rule. It was temporarily forgotten from the last time we were out there. I wouldn't bother to pace myself. I didn't feel like I needed to. Although I needed to slow down, I was different. Right now, I focused on the 15-hour drive ahead that was standing between us and our gig in Boise, Idaho. We had to get in, get set up, and get rested for the next day. We were opening for B.B. King. The gig was taking place on Boise State campus. I had played there before and knew what to expect. The stage was set in a valley, creating a natural amphitheater. The special activities folks produced the shows and were thorough in making arrangements. There were no botched motel rooms. The times on the itinerary would be correct. They always had the proper gear waiting on stage, so there was little to complain about, though I'm sure out of the 10 of us, we would come up with something. Getting there entailed driving for an hour, taking a half-hour ferry ride to downtown Seattle, then driving for 13 more hours. A large part of the drive would be beautiful. The boring scenery was from Vantage to Spokane, which was 4 hours of flat, dry ground. There had been a drought that year, so there wouldn't even be any crops to look at. Maybe it was just as well. My head had so much static, looking at nothing might be good for it. Hangovers and stimulation don't go together. Lucy, Nina, and Chrissy rode in my van. Witches blabbeth. Our attitudes that morning were as appealing as last night's flat, long-necked beer. Chrissy had a hangover. Lucy was sucking on a beer, and Nina was miffed with all of us. She tuned the rest of us out by listening to Nina Simone on her Walkman. The earphones pushed back her hair and made it stick straight up on top. To add to the already subtle but alluring look, Nina had on bright yellow wraparound ski glasses. She looked like a cartoon. I enjoyed seeing her look so ridiculous since she was being so fucking self-righteous towards me for drinking too much. Nina was talking to me, but barely. At first, I thought it was that somewhere in her tiny brain, she thought that it was okay to sleep with every man in town if she could, but I shouldn't get drunk. Then I realized she was jealous about the beau thing. If she couldn't have someone and had to be a miserable, lonely bitch, then I should be too. Misery sure does love company in the big black hole. Chrissy was already starting, getting warmed up for her first set of daily complaints. She had forgotten her promise about not speaking to me.
Now, how far is this fucking place?
I watched her open up a bag of Cheetos as I took a deep breath thinking, am I strong enough for this? Oh, it'll take about 15 hours to get there, I said with cotton in my mouth. She didn't lose a beat.
15 hours? Jesus Christ. I should have flown and just met you there. There is no way I'm riding in this fucking van for 15 hours.
I said, Chrissy, I don't think flying is an option for you. You couldn't pay your phone bill this month. I remembered her last paycheck had to be written directly to the phone company. Chrissy didn't trust herself with the money. Drugs had a way of eating up her dough pretty darn quick. Anyway, my reality check didn't stop her MO, which was to complain.
I don't give a fuck. It's too goddamn far.
That's when I remembered 2 more road rules. One of the forgotten rules was never wrestle with a pig. The pig likes it. You just get dirty. The other rule, let people complain. That's all they're interested in. They aren't interested in getting to the solution. They are having too much fun in the problem. About this time, I looked over and saw Lenny racing by. He liked to drive fast, even faster than me. That's fast. Sticking out of the passenger window was Sam's round, pink, glistening little baseball-loving ass. We could hear him laughing like an insane peewee. He pulled pranks like this when we were teenagers. It was funny then, but when a semi-responsible adult sticks his ass out of the window, it's in the top 10 of the laugh meter. We laughed for 5 miles. As we were all laughing, that funny feeling was returning. I couldn't stop thinking. I really should stop drinking. Is this what I want for the rest of my life? Why don't I get honest with myself? Is my life really working? Do I really want to be here? Should I have slept with Bo? Does he really care about me? Thoughts were leaking through my mind, now cleverly disguised as a dam. I brushed the damp thoughts away with available fingers since the rest were busy trying to plug up my leaking mind. On with the show.
Pretend we're together. Trust me on a dare. When I'm in trouble, be there to care. Take me to
Some are coming on the passenger. Some are coming on the freight. Others will be found walking, for none have time to wait.
The road more traveled. It sounds corny, but I love the wind on my face. Sometimes I wonder if I'm part dog. I just can't get enough of it. The always changing scenery, rural smells, the sensations, the pressure of the breeze, putting the palm of my hand up to greet the wind as she tries to force it back. The brief encounters with interesting people, buying useless plastic trinkets at sleazy truck stops, eating bad food, sleeping in a different place every night. Yes, my gypsy blood sure does come alive on the highway. Before leaving Port Townsend, we decided to rendezvous at the Vantage View Super 8 gas station, which was a cleverly disguised 7-Eleven with gas pumps. Of course, this was located in the middle of Vantage, Washington. The small town is a halfway point between Seattle and Spokane, making it a favorite stop for musicians traveling between the 2 cities. Besides, it overlooks the incredible Columbia River. By the time we got there, my head would have cleared a little bit, and a nice view would be a good thing. It was a great relief to gaze out over the river after being cooped up with 3 hostile women for 5 hours. Each vehicle pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant, which sat on a cliff high above the river. We piled out of the car, one at a time. We filed into the Vantage View, the town's local hangout for coffee. The 3 booths were decorated in orange and yellow 60s colors. It was another pit stop strewn along the highway, just waiting for us. None of us looked like we should go into a public place, let alone like we might possibly be entertainers. People like us were the reason they lived in small towns. We had learned to look straight ahead. Lucy looked like a hooker. The band was composed of 2 gangsters, a cowboy, and a munchkin. Nina was a cartoon. Chrissy said fuck loudly about every other word. AC had slippers on her feet and a rag on her head. Paula was dressed for picking cotton. Nina had on cowboy clothes. I had on the same thing I had worn at the beginning of the road trip: blue jeans, shirt, baseball cap, and tennis shoes. It took all my energy to make clothing decisions since I was nursing the hangover of my life. None of it seemed strange to us. It was just another day on the highway. I'm not sure the rest of the world saw it like we did. We were standing in line, waiting to buy our snacks. Paula and Chrissy were looking at the sunglasses, swiveling them around as each waited her turn to try on a different pair. A yellow plastic sign announcing that the floor was wet blocked one of the aisleways. Marty, meanwhile, couldn't stop talking about the upcoming gig. Though most of his influence was country, he had put in his time listening to B.B. King records. Mr. King was a big deal. Even if you never listen to blues music, you know who B.B. King is. He is the king of the blues. Marty kept up the nervous chatter. When he was getting ready to talk, Marty had a habit of pushing his cowboy hat back off his forehead so you could get a better look at his eyes, or maybe so he could get a better look at yours.
God, I just hope I'm on tomorrow night. BB's one of my heroes. I got to make sure I get some downtime before the show and get my fingers warmed up on the new guitar. I got to think about what I'm going to play.
I knew how Marty felt. I've known you for a long time. He nodded. I grabbed his hand. You're going to do fine. You play the best when you're under pressure, and this is a lot of pressure. Then he said,
You know, I guess I'm no different than most players. I just need to be told that I can play every once in a while.
I loved Marty for admitting the truth. He was always honest about what he felt. Marty had respect for the music he played. He was more nervous about doing the music justice than he was about his level of talent. Deep down, if you have talent, the real kind, you know you can open for or play with anybody. All you need is a chance. Ruby, the lady at the counter, was sizing us up pretty quick and gathered we weren't dangerous. She had no doubt seen much worse in the trailer park she probably lived in. On the tag right above the starched left pocket of her light brown and tan station uniform was her full name, Ruby Procopio. She looked tough, like the girls I went to junior high with in the 60s. Ruby's dyed black hair was ratted 2 inches tall, and her makeup was 2 shades darker than the skin it sat on top of. The uniform was tight enough so that there was no mistaking where Miss Procopio's rolls of fat began. The underwear she had on only helped along the bulge. Her huge breasts were taking a much-needed rest on the belt of the uniform. Ruby was game and provided a great sideshow distraction from the freak show of constant bickering I was traveling with. Ladies and gentlemen, right here in Vantage, meet women with the foulest attitudes in the state of Washington. Admission is 1 cup of coffee. Ruby was friendly and willing to have a little fun at our expense. Her voice was 2 decibels louder than ours was. She was our kind of woman. The first words out of Ruby's pink lips were,
What would our ladies of the buffet like to eat this afternoon?
oh boy, here was someone we could use our tired material on. Lucy was first.
Let's see, honey. I'll have a hot dog and a diet pop. You don't happen to have a shot of Crown Royal back behind the counter, do you? Oh, and Ruby, honey, I just wanted to mention how much I like how this place is laid out. Tell me, honey, how long has it been dead?
We howl. We've used this line for years. There's nothing like new territory for old jokes. Ruby didn't miss a beat, shaking her head as the long plastic daisy earring swung back and forth.
A couple of years now. That's a nice blouse you're wearing. What, couldn't they guess your weight?
Touché. We went back and forth. We needed the laughter. Hey, girlfriend. My husband was so ugly that when I took him to a Jack in the Box, someone screamed an order into his face. Things were picking up. My hands had stopped shaking and my brain cells were on speaking terms. I could think and start to form a plan. There are rolling wheat fields on the way to Walla Walla. They are continuous as you move along the Columbia River. The Columbia sweeps through a deep, jagged ravine carved out millions of years ago where the farmland meets the prehistoric. The sky seemed to bend the same as the road. The beauty of the land and the seemingly endless highway was mystical as the music came floating out of the van speakers. The lyrics were those only Van Morrison could command. All of it caused an ache in my soul, an unsettled feeling, a want, or maybe a need of something more. We started to relax, get into the rhythm of it. It takes a while, finding the rhythm of the road, a rhythm that is about nothing ever being the same. Where do we eat? When will we stop? Phones don't ring. The scenery is continuously changing. Over time, you learn to let go of expectation. It will disappoint you. Put your faith in the road. You know it will be fine. Roads lead to somewhere, don't they? Why worry? The lines have a rhythm. Speed up, slow down, and get into the moment. Stare at the car in front of you. What's on the radio? Turn down the heat. Turn up the air conditioning. Doesn't it all connect somehow? Who's got the chips? Pass them over. Hey man, roll down the window if you're gonna smoke. Were we supposed to turn there? Where's the map? I gotta pee. Pull over at the next rest stop. The road wears different faces, the unfamiliar, all the time. You know you're always this close to something going wrong, not getting paid, needing gas, not getting enough sleep. Stay in the moment. It is dangerous to be out of it because if you are, you lose the rhythm of the road. Accept all of this and the rhythm is yours. I love it. It's an adventure. It's in my blood. It's the only time I'm happy. It was the same feeling I would get when I'd hear melancholy songs when I was in the middle of nature, driving on an open road, seeing the end of it disappearing into the horizon. For the moment, a wandering with no particular destination exposed the black hole I couldn't ignore any longer. The lyrics wouldn't go away. Little pieces of Velcro stuck to each lyric. The lyrics stuck on me. I missed Bo. He said to call, but now was too soon. I had to act casual. Oh, this is what I hated about love, the angst, the ache, the longing. The feelings kept interrupting my thoughts, the beating of my heart, my safe life. I knew I wasn't going to be really happy until I saw him again. That fact scared me. I was sure it would send me off into booze land. I couldn't stand to feel uncomfortable, and at that point in my life, I hadn't found a better prescription for my pain than whiskey. The road gave me comfort and melancholy at the same time. It was as if moving through nature offered only partial solace, causing me to ache for more. As we approached Walla Walla, the town they liked so much they named it twice, I thought about all the times my band had played the Green Hill Bar. It was funny how little towns not connected to anything except a lot of dirt out in the center of nowhere will have a real appreciation for the blues. Out in the middle of farm country was the Walla Walla Blues Society. They held barbecues for the talent coming through, supportive as hell. My Walla Walla friend, Tim Stewart, was responsible for the blues bands that came to play. He was a part-time promoter and part-time entertainment editor for the local paper. But mainly, he owned a combination head shop, musical equipment record store. The name of his store was Hot Poop. His production company held the same name. The store had an anarchist ring to it. His hair, along with hot poop, was a political statement. Tim had long, straight, sandy brown hair hanging past his ass. I've never seen his hair pulled back even once into a ponytail. The hair was an advertisement of a lifestyle that Tim had committed to in 1965. Once we got to Walla Walla, the guys in the band wanted to go off in their own directions and wander around. All the women wanted to stop by Hot Poop, say hello to Tim, and get a burger down the street. Tim was ecstatic to see 6 women converging on his store.
Oh, man, this is too cool. What an honor.
He understood the road and everything that went along with it. Tim had spent enough time around musicians.
Hell, I need to take you beautiful women out for a burger. I remember how much you love Hank's Burgers.
Lucy and Chrissy loved the free concept. They accepted for all of us.
If you don't remember where it is, it's a block down the street to the right. The burgers are even better than you remember them. Hank has been working on his secret sauce. I'll meet you there in 10 minutes.
Driving through neighborhoods of unfamiliar small towns was one of the bonuses of being on the road. I liked seeing how the population lived. Walla Walla was pretty with its Douglas firs lining the streets. Most of the homes had been built in the 30s and 40s, when houses were homes. People didn't just exist in these towns, but raised families. They knew a porch was an important part of peace of mind. Sitting and observing was more than a hobby. It was a way to quiet the soul. I've forgotten all of that. Why? How? What's more important than sitting on your porch and watching the world go by? I guess I must think something. I haven't sat on my porch in a long time, don't even have much of one. Maybe one day there would be another way of life. Maybe one day I would find a porch worth sitting on. It was time to go, and leaving Tim was hard since he was one of the good guys. But we were 3 hours behind schedule. Before the Idaho state line, we had to pass through the Walla Walla Valley and the northeast corner of Oregon, which meant we would drive through Oregon's Blue Mountains. The Blue Mountains last for miles. The highway coils around them like a curly hair around your finger. It is a difficult drive, and it was especially hard on our loaded-down vehicles. The fog was ever present when driving over Meacham Hill, the tallest mountain. At least it was summer. I had driven these mountains in the winter. I don't know if I had ever been more scared, which is quite a statement from a girl who grew up in the inner city of Detroit. I was going to have to concentrate. The road would be my main focus. The women were going down for their expected naps, which was good because conversation would be too much of a distraction. Only 5 hours to Boise, and 2 hours of it would be difficult driving. No problem. Once we got over the Blue Mountains, I would be ready to sing the blues. The mountains have a blue cast to them with fog settling in at the peaks. They seem to retreat from us as we approach them. The area feels magical, much like what I have imagined the highlands of Scotland to feel and look like. There aren't fences, crops, or farm critters, just blue-green grass on rolling adolescent hills that haven't quite grown up to be mountains. The road continually shifted direction to accommodate the terrain. I respect that. Why bulldoze through mountains to make driving easier? The difficulty of the drive gave me a healthy respect for the land's physicality. We drove straight through. The women slept in my van most of the way. I was feeling content from the great burger and a good visit with an old friend. At the moment, I had the bow glow going on, thinking about how it had felt to make love with him. I had my pretzels and diet pop and was munching and driving and listening and thinking and feeling and cruising and taking in the mountain view. As I listened and surveyed the dramatic scenery, I felt my gypsy blood stir inside of me. Nature knew standing still was death itself. The movement of nature was so obvious in the migration of the birds, the flow of the river, and the wind in the trees. The mythology of the king roving his land and slaying dragons was the same feeling pulsing through my veins, and so far the dragons were winning. But at the moment, I knew I could live out of the trunk of a car. Honey, it don't get no better than that.
In my back door, man. Yeah, baby.
As a man gets old, he's got to start preparing to meet the Lord. Many of you older ones who have been singing and playing the blues all of your lives should now resolve to sing only gospel or church songs. Blues isn't evil music. You better quit singing them blues because you ain't too old for the devil to get to you. You've been warned by God. To sing the blues again would be to shake hands with the devil.
I really began to fight for the blues. Tired of hearing how the blues is evil. The things people say about those blues singers, I thought of as the greats in the business. Don't like what they say about the blues singers. Yes, it does hurt me. They speak of them though they were all illiterate and dirty. To be honest, I believe they felt they were trying to lift the standards of the Negro and that they just didn't want to be associated with the blues because it was something still back there, like something wrong with our past. I was proud of where I come from and who I aim to be. That would BB tell me, and he ain't no liar.
Great expectations. Lewis and Clark were the first white men to explore the area, and white it stayed. In 1880, the government had relocated most of the Indians to reservations. Non-whites, mainly Indians, Asians, blacks, and Mexicans, make up 5% of the population. Though no one says so, you get the feeling that's just how most Idahoans want to keep it. The racism was an underlying vibe that none of us could shake. The farther north we traveled into the state, the more Aryan it got, but the college in Boise lent more of a cosmopolitan mood to the region. Vinny and Lucy hated Idaho. Mark was just too laid back to care. Lenny thought he was black, so he hated it too. Chrissy was too busy thinking about her own drama to care what color someone else's skin was. Paula was used to living in a white world since she had been married twice to white men, so the Idaho vibe rolled off her black back. AC didn't care one way or another. She would just boss your ass around no matter what color you were. We arrived in Boise. It was about 2 a.m. early Tuesday morning. I was tired and needed my beauty sleep for the B.B. King show that evening. Paula and I got to share a room again. I would be able to get some sleep. It was afternoon by the time we both had come to. We felt good. For me, lying off the booze the last 2 days helped. Showtime was 8 in the evening. We were doing a 45-minute set before BB. The sound check was at 4 o'clock. We were excited about the show. I didn't usually eat very healthy food, but that afternoon, Paula and I decided on salad for lunch. I wanted to have all my strength, so I guess I wouldn't be having no greasy barbecue ribs weighing me down before the performance. With lunch out of the way, we had some very big problems to solve. "What are you going to wear?" I asked. She looked indecisive.
I don't know, girlfriend. I can't make up my mind. Why? What are you going to wear?
Fuck, I don't know. How about black? That always works when we can't make up our minds.
Okay, black it is then.
When Paula wears black, it means black with big-time shine. Everything she wore had rhinestones on it, even her gym shorts. That afternoon was wonderful. Being in a motel room with my girlfriend doing girl stuff. I brought the creams and lotions. Paula brought the mud for our face and tools for a pedicure. We had a leisurely 3 hours of doing what women are supposed to do before an important show. Primp. Most of the time, we didn't have time for being relaxed and treating ourselves special, so that afternoon was an extra treat. There we sat watching all my children with curlers in our hair, mud on our face, cream on our skin, and cotton between our toes, waiting for our toenails to dry. Paula never got a chance to do most of these things at home. It was wonderful to see her so happy. God, Paula, I feel like a fucking princess right now. She laughed.
You sure as hell don't look like one right now. Girl, why can't I do this for myself at home? I need to spoil myself more often.
I knew why I didn't. I thought it was too much trouble most of the time. For some reason, when on the road, it made sense to me, maybe because there were absolutely no distractions. Maybe I let myself be distracted at home because I didn't think I was worth the special treatment.
I don't know why we don't, but I come off of the road more rested than when I left. Just the telephone not ringing all the time seems to make a difference.
I paused for a minute. Paula?
Yeah.
Thanks for being such a good friend. I know you're the one that knows what it's like to be in charge of this fucking show, and, well, thanks for not passing judgment on me. You know, for my bad habits. Paula smiled.
You ain't doing nothing that I haven't done, girlfriend. When you get tired of the craziness, you'll stop. You don't know it yet, but you have important things to accomplish in your life. You won't have time for this stupid shit. You'll have to get busy one day, girl.
Even though I loved Paula, I hoped she didn't see the tears. Accomplishing anything besides what was exactly in front of me seemed remote. I felt that if I could just make it to the end of the road trip, I might live past 40. I retreated to the safety of all my children. At least their lives seemed more fucked up than mine. Before we put on makeup and stage regalia, we needed to deal with the sound check. It was typical. The warm-up acts are the guinea pigs. If anything goes wrong, they want to make sure it doesn't happen to the star. I don't object to most of this. It's the class system in the music world. What I object to is how some sound crews treat us, especially when it came to the big shows. Marty had moved the amplifier that was being provided by the sound company over to the left side of the stage where he was used to playing. The stage hand was on him.
Hey, you! Don't move that fucking amplifier. It has to stay right where it is. That's where BB's guitar player wants it.
Marty was mortified. I'd known Marty for years, and I have never heard him ever raise his voice. For him to be yelled at paralyzed him. At the same time, Paula was moving the microphone stands into position where the women would be standing.
We're supposed to move those stands. Don't touch this stuff.
The crews were so focused on setting up for the main act that they shoved our concerns aside. They barked orders, not asking what our needs might be. We were embarrassed and pissed. Being yelled at by some ape that happens to move gear around was getting to all of us, even Sam. He had been yelled at for moving the cymbals to suit his style of playing. There was nothing we could do except obey and grumble. All of us were walking around mumbling under our breaths like monks, chanting in a monastery, just loud enough for the other monks to hear. It was weird to hear Paula complain.
Who the fuck do they think they are, girlfriend?
AC was indignant. Man, they might try and talk to us like we're human beings. Even Nina got into the act.
A little respect goes a long way.
Then there was Lenny.
They can move my shit. When I'm done shitting on the stage, I was treated better in fucking prison.
Lenny was mad. The black he was wearing took on a life of its own, getting darker as he was standing there in 90-degree heat. We knew after we performed it would be different. We would sufficiently impress the crew, having earned something closer to star treatment. But I get tired of the ritual. All humans deserve respect. We were relieved to be done with the sound initiation and headed back to the motel room, which was located close to the gig. The location was convenient because on some gigs, some of the logistics were difficult. Being close would give us more time to prepare, to get ready. I'm not usually nervous, but I was nervous about this gig. My nerves had nothing to do with the huge audience, which that evening would be around 5,000. Hell, as far as I was concerned, the more the merrier. My nerves were reminding me that most of my career was spent playing dives. I had fought for every ounce of attention. The bars I played were designed to sell booze, not showcase music. A gig like this, the exposure, a great sound system, a large audience who not only shows up, but pays attention once they get there. And of course, B.B. King was worth 100 bars played. I'm sure each woman was thinking the same thing. If B.B. likes me, maybe he can help me out with a record deal or ask me to go on the road with him. This could be the beginning of a whole new way of life. Desperation had a firm hold on my career. I was turning 40 in a couple of months, and just realizing none of the dreams I had clutched onto since the age of 10 had a chance in hell of coming true. I had a lot riding on this show. In retrospect, I'm sure my thoughts about impressing BB and his band weren't unique, but at the time, I felt very alone with them. We showed up a bit early to take part in the refreshments. The crew had a backstage area where hospitality tents were set up for us. When Lucy, Paula, and Chrissy heard the word hospitality, it meant a couple of things. Free is just another word for nothing left to buy. Yes, these girls had a plan. Free food and big purses. Chrissy could get more shit into her pouch than a kangaroo. I've watched her dump everything in there. This time, it was loose candy, fresh fruit, bottled water, and slices of cheese, and lunch meat. Free was the most important word in the English language to her. I've seen her get up at 8 in the morning for a free continental breakfast. I'd rather starve. Lucy was more interested in the free liquids. Her purse actually clanked when she left the tent. None of us ever dared to throw empty water bottles away. We knew Lucy could pour booze and pre-made cocktails into them. I couldn't stand it anymore. I had to say something. The women were embarrassing me. You guys, put that shit back. You're acting like a bunch of food whores. Lucy didn't miss a beat.
We ain't hoes, we are the hoes.
Paula was the sensible shopper of the bunch. She would cruise the hospitality tables and compare free with the prices in the grocery store. I've stood at many food-piled tables with Paula.
Girl, do you know how expensive the strawberries are at this time of year?
Jesus, Paula, I don't know. I haven't been in a grocery store for months. I never had any idea what the prices were. I avoided the grocery store like the plague. When I did go shopping, I tried to make sure what I was buying came in a can. I was still waiting for tossed salad in a tin. So if it couldn't be ordered from Domino's or come from a container, I probably didn't know how much it cost.
You better get busy and know. Then you'll be aware just what kind of a good deal you're stuffing into your face, girlfriend.
As Paula spoke, she was loading up her purse with napkins wrapped around mounds of strawberries. The only obstacle she had were moving Chrissy and Lucy out of the way. It was time. Musicians were pacing the side of the stage, the perimeter of the bull ring. The set list was ready. We were looking good, scrubbed, perfumed, creamed, and sprayed. Have I remembered everything? We can't make a mistake. We don't have time for it. The women had a job to do. We had to rely on each other. The men adjusted their capes. The women clenched the roses between their teeth. We all sharpened the swords. There were people to entertain. When the crowd cheered, we were on. The slaying of the bull was at hand. We charged ahead and sang our asses off. I love 45-minute sets. You can't waste 1 minute. The show has to move. The minutes are over so fast, it's hard to remember what it felt like. As usual, our show was a mixture of originals and covers of the more obscure tunes. I opened and warmed up the crowd, this time with a Bessie Smith tune called Down in the Dumps. The song wasn't my normal choice, but I knew that if BB were paying attention, he would be impressed. It being a traditional blues song. I started out from the middle of the crowd as if I were Dick Clark, sitting in the audience on American Bandstand. I sat with the remote microphone concealed in my lap. I was singing my heart out. The audience members' heads were spinning around like tops, trying to figure out where my voice was coming from. I stood up in the middle of the seated crowd on the end of the first verse. As one person discovered my whereabouts, they would nudge the one sitting next to them, and so on and on. I had created my own personal stadium wave. The women were on stage singing the backups to my song as I was in the bull ring enticing the bull to come out for a little fun. Toward the end of my song, I sauntered up to the stage so I could be in position to hand the cape to Chrissy. That evening, she hit high notes I didn't know she had in her. Wearing a skin-tight black dress and 4-inch high-heeled shoes to match, singing a song she'd written called You Took My Breath Away. Her blonde bangs kept getting in the way of her opened mouth. When they would become too much of a nuisance, Chrissy would swing her head back, temporarily solving the problem. The audience was always stunned by what they heard at first. They could hear the stampeding of the bull, but couldn't believe it was coming from someone as small as Chrissy. And the bull continued to charge towards the blood-red, low-cut, high-hem sheer dress that stretched across Lucy's body, which had become disengaged. She was a lightly perfumed human slinky. Lucy was doing her honey this and honey that, focusing on a young sweet boy in the front row.
Now tell me, honey, what can I do tonight that will make the evening worthwhile?
It was just a rhetorical question. She didn't want an answer. Lucy wanted to shake things up a bit and get the crowd to enter into her arena. Then she slithered into her song about a man that had done her wrong. I'm sure the men in the audience wanted a chance at doing her right. She soothed the savage beast with her rich tones. Her lasso was out and twirling as she strutted up and down the stage, kicking up familiar dust, showing us all just how easy it would be to rope in that doggone bull. The band was a humping wall of sound. We could count on them. Their notes created architecture that we could lean against with our music, with our songs, our lyrics. The rhythm of the band was breathing life into the beat of the melodies. AC shivered and stomped and screamed. She shook her athletic act to all four corners of the stadium, up and down the aisles. AC's hair was blonde for the night, and a snakeskin dress was her choice for the evening. The blues-singing serpent had picked an upbeat New Orleans number she had written. It got the crowd on their feet and cheering. Boy, we had them now. This would be one of the best shows ever. We all knew it. Each one's performance spurred the next woman on to greater heights. Nina's humor was dead on. She was the only woman I knew who could make a double entendre into a single one. Nina was no longer in the grocery store, but in the gas station to get her oil checked. And of course, let's not forget a new fuel pump. Well, you get the idea. The clown had distracted the bull for a needed short rest. I was in the center of that 45 minutes. I knew how special it was, how wonderful the women were. I could only see our similarities and none of our differences, why and how we all belonged together. I choked back tears of pride. If I never did another thing in my life, the women's show would be enough. But Paula disagreed. Paula was there to be excited. Her life hadn't been going so well, and she was going to make sure that the tour, and especially this show, would be what she needed it to be, an escape from her too real life. An escape she did. Paula crawled along the stage and up Marty's leg. She licked the mic and shook her ass. Nina had soothed the beast only to have Paula wake him the fuck up. The crowd was on their feet once again. Paula was giving them a favorite standard, standing on shaky ground. It was a tired song by anyone else but Paula. AC again, now giving them religion when they didn't think they could take any more. It was time for these people to say their prayers and beg for mercy before the slaying of the bull. So AC showed the crowd how to pray. She reminded us how good it was to feel so bad. You would go crazy with all these bad feelings if you didn't have a little religion on your side. Aretha's song, Think, was the perfect song, each verse building while picking up in tempo. We received 2 standing ovations. The audience threw roses at our feet. We did our job. As we were backstage donning our street clothes for phase 2 of the evening, BB's valet found us and took us to meet him. The valet was quite elegant, not only because of his expensive dark suit, but the manner of his speech.
Mr. King loved the woman's show.
Jesus, maybe my dreams were gonna come true.
B.B. King would like to meet you.
There he was, standing in front of me in all his glory. BB's appearance was clean and tasteful, the same as his playing. He was wearing a dark 3-piece suit with a starch white shirt and shoes I could see my terrified reflection in. The Blues King had a smile on his face that was bigger than the reputation that preceded him. I went first. Hello, Mr. King. My name is Lena. It's an honor to meet you. He stuck out his hand.
Are you in charge of this group?
Yes, sir, I am. I was trying to act normal, but I couldn't remember what normal looked or felt like. He didn't seem to notice the mental gymnastics that my brain was engaged in.
I would like a phone number, Lena, so I can reach you to play some more dates, opening for me.
I was trying to maintain. Thank you, Mr. King. I'm such a fan, Mr. King. My head felt like a Zippo lighter. The top of my brain had flung shut with a snap, causing me to temporarily forget my own phone number. So there I was, going through all my pockets, and the big black cavern disguised as my purse. I couldn't find a fucking thing. No business card, no pen, no memory. I'm sure I have my number around here somewhere, Mr. King. Oh, we'd love to open for you anytime, Mr. King. BB was the king. He was known for always having a kind, supportive word, which is important any time, but especially when you are struggling. Most times you are wondering what you're still doing in the fucking business. Maybe I need to settle down and have children. There you are, middle-aged, no insurance, no spouse. It seems too late to start another career. so you keep struggling to pay the rent. Most people my age own a home. I don't own anything. I was made to sing. Besides, I'm lucky. I know what my true gift is, and I found 5 other women with whom I could share not only the stage, but also the singing experience. And now I find out that B.B. King thinks I can sing the blues. I can make it a little longer. Finally, on the bottom of my purse, a pen, and someone else's card, Hank's Burgers. I wrote my number on the back. Jesus, you would think I could be more professional for these occasions. BB didn't seem to notice.
Thank you, Lena. I'll call.
He turned and regally walked to the side of the stage. The valet handed him Lucille. He carefully strapped the famous guitar around his shoulders. The blues giant looked at Lucille like it was love at first sight, and this was the first time they'd ever met. He had love and respect for his mistress. She had brought him adoration, acknowledgement, a career, and fame. He balanced lovely Lucille by laying her gently on top of his girth. She shined and glistened, responding to his gentle touch. His band introduced him. The crowd roared as the star matador headed for the bull ring. It was time for BB and Lucille to make love in front of thousands of voyeurs. We stood at the side of the stage and watched how the grown-ups did it. We were all taking personal notes. Everyone was secretly hoping that BB would call one of us or the entire menagerie up to jam. We could dream. BB's show came to a close and our rockets needed to be lit. They were getting heavy just sitting on our backs. We wouldn't be able to stand still for long with all that weight.
But things are getting better now. These times today was to come from the foundation. The world is based on one thing. The world is changing. Time bring about change. See if the time had stayed like it was back in them times when I was coming up, would nothing developed. Time moved us out of that, moved people out of that, and our people yet still looking for better in the future now. That's what people looking for now, looking for better. It's better now than it was back in those days, much better. Lord done brought us a long ways, and nobody brings us but our God. But we had to go through that. We had to go through that time. The Lord don't carry nothing back. People carry these things back, not the Lord.
Now take most blues singers. They have lived rough lives, or they have been rough in their lives before they change. Because hard struggles and hard times, it makes people hard and mean toward each other, regardless of who they are. Poverty makes you rough. It makes you like that, and that's part of the blues. You take the hard times from the past and the hard times from today, and what you got is the blues. Singing the blues, well, that's how the Lord and all his flock know that we be in this together. 'Cause I know.
Talking girl talk. It was the middle of the week, Wednesday morning, and we were up early. Everyone was on top of the world, still riding high on the BB buzz. Our adrenaline would be the fuel for the long drive ahead of us. Paula and Nina switched which vans they were riding in. Paula came with me. Nina rode with AC. There was something wrong with Nina's Walkman, so now she didn't have any defense against the 3 of us. At least Paula had prayer. Chrissy and Lucy were still part of my personal circus. I was excited about this leg of the trip since Paula and I love to gossip. No one was safe and no subject too sacred to gossip about. But this morning, Paula was having a hard time and she wanted to talk about herself. She looked troubled. What's going on, Paula? You don't look too happy.
It's all pretty boring.
Hey, driving hour after hour, eating at McDonald's is boring. Whatever you have to say has to be an improvement.
It's just that I haven't had a chance to take the time to feel bad ever since my sister died. It's been 3 months. I can't sleep because I miss her so much. Meanwhile, my mother is having a tough time dealing with my sister's death, and she's made me her personal therapist. And Louisa's a teenager, so she's going through a lot. They're both leaning on me, and there's nothing left to lean on. I don't have the strength, girlfriend.
Paula's face was creased with worry. I'd always thought she was responsible, too responsible. When Paula's sister died, she left her daughter in Paula's care. There wasn't anyone else she'd trust, and they were very close.
I'm 50 years old. This is not the time for me to be getting busy. I don't know how to raise a teenager. I've never had a kid. God damn it, I never even had a fucking cat. I'm on the road all the time. Oh, girlfriend, I just want to go somewhere and cry for about 2 weeks. My mother wants me to be there for her, and she has never once come to see me sing, and I've been singing for 30 years. And now she wants me at her beck and call. What about some respect? What about some respect? I'd like just a little fucking respect.
Going on the road with the women gave Paula a chance to kick back and let down her hair. When she was home, she couldn't stop thinking about everything she had to do. Actually, the road is perfect for suspended time. I know that's part of its appeal for me. While I'm out there, the only thing I have to deal with is what's in front of me. I have learned to apply some of the road rules to real life. Jesus, Paula, whatever you want me to do, you know I'm there for you. This was a big statement for me. Paula was one of the few people I could make a commitment to. I was the original backdoor gal. If things got tough, I was out the door. I usually had a deep mistrust of others who needed a lot of emotional support from me. Too much had been asked from me in my childhood, but Paula was different. No matter what the circumstances would be, I felt I could be there for her. Meanwhile, Lucy and Chrissy evidently had read the same self-help books. I can see it now. The new bestseller. Fuck it. Life just got a little too tough. Life not going your way. This is the book for you. They both had the same reaction to Paula's dilemmas.
Fuck 'em.
Chrissy yelled from the back seat. Lucy piped in.
You have your own life to lead, honey. They just have to understand that, so fuck them.
Lucy and Chrissy had chucked their families a long time ago, but not Paula. She wasn't the same type. Paula knew what mature grown-ups know. Families get special rules. On top of that, her sister had just died. Her father had died a year before. I understood her need to hang on to the family that was left. Paula sank back in her seat, defeated. She had finally opened up, talked about her personal problems, only to hear, fuck 'em. Advice from the salty peanut gallery was not what she needed. After Paula clammed up, the van housed an uncomfortable silence. The silence was reminiscent of someone who had just confessed, and there we were in a moving church with leather seats instead of pews, staring straight ahead at our higher power, the road. The silence coincided with nap time. On the road, the times we slept were consistent. Our sleep alarms would go off after breakfast and after lunch. You would stretch out any way you could, with cramped legs up on the door handles, the dash, the seat, the headrest, or your neighbor's lap. Pillows would be strategically propped up against the windows or your girlfriend's shoulder. I could hear Chrissy mumbling underneath her breath.
How am I supposed to be comfortable in this fucking van? I should have flown. This is the last time I'm doing this shit.
John Lee Hooker was ignoring her whining as his music played on the radio. I searched and focused on the rhythm. There it is. Now I'll sit back and relax. Boise to Missoula is 370 miles. In a car, driving nonstop, that would take 8 hours. In loaded-up vans, holding 10 people who eat, drink, piss, and take smoke breaks, add at least 3 more hours. We didn't have to play until the following day, which would be Thursday. It was a club date. As I was driving, my mind wandered. I thought how lucky I was to be able to live in a part of the country that was so beautiful. Growing up in Detroit, there wasn't much to look at. The charm of Detroit is the people and the energy. I love Detroiters. I've been gone 20 years and still miss the people. In the Motor City life, it is more immediate and urgent because you're forced to stay sharp, forced to react. In the Northwest, everything is fine. No, really, everything is just fine. Go ahead, ask somebody and he'll tell you the same thing. He's fine. Really, I'm okay. My response is, okay good or okay bad. When you talk to people out here, opinions are not expressed. If you are passionate about what you believe, people think you're angry and unreasonable and that something is wrong with you. Meanwhile, back in Detroit, the guy behind the deli counter will yell at you if you don't make up your mind fast enough. That's where I feel real. In my heart, Detroit is home. I love that energy. What the Northwest lacks in personality and gumption, it makes up for in the scenic arena. Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana are beautiful states. Underneath the big, clear, open skies are long, winding roads through mountainous terrain. The roads follow along the rude rivers when they can, triggering my imagination of the old Indian trails. The red man had his river to follow, and I, a slab of cement. Out here in the West, history seems more apparent. I feel connected to long ago. In Detroit or Chicago or any other city, we've paved over them old trails. The rivers are the only trace of the stolen land's natural state. In the hustle and bustle of everyday life, we have forgotten there was a rich past before we ever showed up. Since most of us don't know where we have come from, how can we know where we are headed? Idaho is what was left over after the adjacent states had established their borders, a time when natural resources were so plentiful that man felt compelled to leave alone what he didn't think he needed at the time. The boot-shaped state shares borders with Washington, Oregon, Wyoming, and Montana. Each of these states has a rugged beauty, but Little Idaho is the most commanding of them all. The Salmon River and Glacier Valley Canyons, both located in Idaho, are deeper than the Grand. We would cut through both on our way up to Missoula. The 3,000-mile mountain system of the Rockies extends from North Alaska down to North Mexico. Since most of Idaho lies in the Rocky Mountain region, we would be able to experience its wild and spectacular beauty. The canyons, steep waterfalls, rugged highlands, evergreen forests, and quick-moving rivers that all blend and break into the regal mountains were what had been patiently waiting for millions of years so all could see. When I was able to partake of such a scenic treat, I felt humbled and lucky to be part of the experience. Growing up where I did gave me a completely different reference point than most of the people I was traveling with. I left Detroit for a number of reasons, but the big one was the absence of trees and nature in my surroundings. I always appreciated the green that nature provided. When I was small, I ached for nature before I knew what that ache was for. For as long as I can remember, I wanted a house in the country with a little river running through my property. I still haven't achieved this, but compared to the Motor City, the street I live on in the middle of Seattle looks like a jungle. Being able to be so close to the real thing, not a picture in a book, but the real thing, I just knew how fucking lucky I was. Nature's magnitude has a way of dwarfing all of life's problems and sucking you into the vortex of the now. There, I would be in one moment with my head up my ass and the next minute admiring the snow-capped mountains and forgetting I ever had a problem. That's humbling. To realize in your heart that none of your drama quite matters. We were going to stop and eat lunch in a couple of hours. I needed to stretch. Times like these, I realized I was not as young as I used to be. I thought, too, for the millionth time, that maybe I should quit drinking. Then, just as quickly, I pushed it aside, deciding that I could think about it later. Paula and Lucy were snoring. It was good to see Paula sleeping peacefully. She needed it. Chrissy was singing to herself, listening to her current favorite CD, Neville Brothers Live. Chrissy always sang. I only sang when I was performing. I never practiced. For Chrissy, though, singing was the same as breathing. Singing was about the only thing she could do. She didn't have any social skills. There were 3 things you could talk to Chrissy about: music, men, and gossip. And the girl was mean when it came to gossip. If we were talking about another singer, Chrissy described her as that fucking cow. It bothered me, but when Chrissy was on a trash mission, there was no point in trying to dissuade her, and I mean nobody could stop that mean little blonde once she got started. My growling stomach told me it was getting to be lunchtime. I was a few minutes from pulling over. On cue, the women were waking up. It was my suggestion. Let's get some food that hangs on for a while. You know, mashed potatoes, meat, hamburgers. Paula, queen of the salad bar, said,
What the hell? I could use a hot meal.
Chrissy had come in just in time to complain.
Where are we fucking stopping? There's nothing around here.
Luckily, I had an answer. I just saw a sign back there for visitors' information. I think it said 5 miles ahead. I'll signal the others, and we can stop and ask. We pulled into the parking lot of the friendly green and white cabin-styled building and piled out of the 3 vehicles, resembling the disoriented refugees on Ellis Island. The road was slowly taking its toll. Disheveled, dusty, and worn out, stretching was a #1 priority for the group. We looked like a bunch of cats which had been kept in a small cage. The whole 10 of us stood around and stretched and stretched and stretched. I've often thought when watching torture scenes in films featuring the rack, that piece of equipment where they tie your hands on one end and your feet on the other, how good it would feel to be stretched the first 30 seconds. I could just see one of those contraptions strapped on top of the van with bungee cords and us taking it down at rest stops. 10 people screaming, "Now, do me!" So there we were in Grangeville. It didn't take much imagination to figure out why the town was named that. Grangeville is grassland sitting on the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. Highway 12 was closed in the winter, and in the summer you had to worry about rock slides. We were hopeful the day we were coming through wouldn't be one of those times. "Welcome to Grangeville," the sign read. I think they meant this metaphorically when putting up the sign. I don't think people of the town were all that fond of strangers in these here parts tucked out of the way in God's country where life is still unspoiled and people go to church on Sunday, so don't show up here with any of your big city ideas. If you weren't wearing the preferred cowboy hat or a cap with your favorite truck's company emblem on the front, you might be considered suspicious because the closer to Montana you got, the more hats there were. Little children had little cowboy hats. It was weird. Looking around at the content faces of my group, I could see that the rhythm of the road was kicking in for all of us except Nina. I knew it was just about the magic hour. She had an inner clock that went off every other day, telling her it was time to be unhappy, time to hang a black cloud over our weary heads. Nina started out slow, ending with a fit. That was her style. Hell, it was more than her style, it was her job. Eventually, she would refuse to speak to everyone except Paula. She needed one ally. Paula would be the way we would have to communicate with Nina, the official liaison. This dynamic would be difficult in a small room, so of course, it was impossible in a van. Ignoring these facts, Nina threw the first pitch.
You know, I don't believe how poorly this road trip was planned. Routing is the key, you know. We are not getting paid nearly enough, you know, for the time we are putting in.
I caught the ball. Okay, at this point, I was thinking 2 things. First, I'm the one that has been driving. The time she has put in has been napping. And secondly, I did the routing, so naturally, I was starting to take her verbal abuse personally. I took a deep breath and checked my temper. I knew better. This wasn't about me. The woman was in heat and really cranky because of it. Nina would try and make this our fault. My fault. After all, I was authority. That's what I thought, or rather, stuffed. What I said was, I'll try to do a better job booking the road gigs. I don't know what I can do about the money. We're getting paid top dollar for a regional act. My stomach was getting upset. I hated being in the middle of this unrest. At the time, I was sure my job was to keep everyone happy, no matter how sick it made me or how impossible the situation was. I didn't know then that I had no power over other people, especially the way their thinking worked. Meanwhile, my diplomatic statement hit Nina on her forehead and fell off unheard. So much for making nice. She continued more aggressively.
They always say that about the money, Lena. You know, you just have to stay on them.
She was getting more excited.
You know, I'm tired of being used. This is the only job I can think of, you know, where the longer you stay in, the less money you make. You're just playing into their trap, you know?
In my head, there was a whole different dialogue than the one that was about to come out of my mouth. A frustrated voice that sounded a lot like mine was bouncing around inside the tired walls of my brain. Yeah, I know. It's absolutely fucking fucked. And the entire world owes you a fucking living because you have such a miserable fucking life. It's no wonder no human being will fuck you more than once. I can hear you in the middle of fucking. I deserve more, you know? You know I deserve more. Instead, I managed some sarcasm. Yeah, Nina, you're right. Boy, I sure fucked up. I let those motherfuckers walk all over me. The sarcasm wasn't being wasted. I knew all the women knew if I could, I'd get top dollar for them. I had moved from sarcasm to confrontational. God knows I made you do this, Nina. I seem to remember how worried you were last week when you couldn't pay your rent. Didn't you say then this road trip was a lifesaver?
Fuck you!
It may be a wild presumption on my part, but someone screaming "fuck you" in a visitor's bureau on Main Street in Grangeville was a little inappropriate. No matter, Nina was done with screaming or even talking because she wasn't speaking to me anymore. Sam started to do Pee-wee. Pee-wee looking at a map. Pee-wee getting lost. Pee-wee being found, and of course, Pee-wee jacking off. Every band needs someone like Sam. The ability to keep it light. Life is fun. Come on, everybody. Work with me, not against me. It's time to have fun. That's Sam. Helen still seemed oblivious to our shenanigans as she organized the maps. I'm sure she had more important things to think about. Were her tomatoes coming in yet? Did that guy get his information? Will she get off in time to pick the kids up from school? I was embarrassed by Nina's behavior. Her inner clock would ring once again and tell her it was safe to talk again. Much as we were all used to her tantrums, it didn't mean they were okay. I was tired of acting like her moods didn't bother me. Every time Nina pulled that stunt, it made me sick. I envied Linda Blair in The Exorcist. If I could just spin my head around 3 times and spew horrible green stuff all over Nina's lap, I would feel so much better. But no. I was the self-appointed peacekeeper, and the job I had been elected for was causing me a whole lot of pain. At least Nina was in a different van. It could be worse. I've had her riding in mine and pull this shit on me. The minute we got in the van, the Lucy and Chrissy show came running to my defense. Just a little late. I could have used them when the drama was going on. Paula stayed neutral. This was my family. Different rules. As much as I hated Nina, I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. After all, I could be Nina and hate being in my own skin. When I looked into a mirror, I saw my face, not hers. Seeing her unhappy, miserable, blame everyone else for never getting screwed eyes staring back at me would be hell. We were armed with our supplies to keep us going. Lenny had his pot. AC had Kit Kats. I had pretzels and Diet Pop. Time sure does fly when you're occupied. The 2 hours had passed quickly. I not only had my supplies, but a lot on my mind to keep my focus off of the mile markers. I had been planning all the evil but rational things I was going to say and do to Nina. I had imagined medieval tortures. For instance, maybe some device that was able to pull out each one of her pubic hairs while she was forced to look at the centerfold in Playgirl. This scenario would be my own version of Clockwork Orange. Of course, when Nina would come around, I would act like nothing had happened. Still, dreaming up the stuff gave me the pleasure of a daydreamed revenge. I was lost in my new thoughts of impalement when I spotted the hot springs sign. Shit! We had missed the turn. The other vehicles were following me for a change. Boy, I wouldn't hear the last of this. I guess we'll make a pit stop in Hot Springs. I had needed to take a piss 10 miles outside of town, but I had learned to control my bladder, along with my expectations, my disappointments, my fears, and my dreams, which takes practice. Like any muscle, the more you work it, the more it works for you.